What happens when one calm voice makes an entire studio fall silent and leaves America stunned, Piers Morgan speechless, and even Donald Trump visibly shaken? In this video, you will witness the exact moment India Foreign Minister S Jaishankar delivers a statement so sharp, so composed, and so unexpected that global power dynamics seem to shift in real time. No shouting, no aggression, just words that cut deep, creating discomfort, shock, and a silence louder than outrage. As the tension builds second by second, the reactions reveal more than the statement itself, and by the end, you will realize why this single moment is being called a turning point that the world was not ready for. The studio lights burn hot and white. They hum above the desk like restless insects. Cameras stare without blinking. The air smells of metal and warm plastic. A low murmur rolls through the audience. Microphones breathe softly, waiting. Piers Morgan leans forward. His fingers tighten around his notes. Across the screen, Drive S Jaishankar sits calm. His posture is straight. His face is unreadable. A glass of water trembles slightly near his hand. The first question lands gently. Diplomacy. Alliances. Global pressure. Jaishankar listens. He nods once. Then he speaks. The room temperature seems to drop. His voice is measured. Clear. Unhurried. Each word lands like a stone on glass. America is not the center of the moral universe, he says. A sharp intake of breath moves through the crowd. Someone shifts in their seat. A pen slips and hits the floor. Piers blinks. The monitors flicker with live reactions. A producer presses a hand to a headset. Outside the studio, traffic noise fades into nothing. Inside, silence thickens. Jaishankar continues. India makes decisions for its people, not for applause. The scent of coffee turns bitter. A woman in the front row swallows hard. The cameras zoom closer. Every pore on Jaishankar's face becomes visible. No sweat. No hesitation. On social media screens behind the scenes, messages explode. Caps lock screams. Flags appear. Anger. Amazement. Shock. Across the Atlantic, a private office glows with television light. Donald Trump stands still. His jaw tightens. The room smells of polished wood and old paper. He does not smile. He does not speak. The words repeat in his head. Not the center. Not the center. Back in the studio, Piers clears his throat. His voice feels smaller now. He asks if this risks backlash. Jaishankar tilts his head. Respect is not begged for, he says. It is practiced. A camera operator wipes sweat from his brow. The red recording light feels heavier. Audience members exchange glances. No one laughs. No one claps. The walls seem closer. The ceiling feels lower. Piers shifts again. His chair creaks loudly. He asks about power. About consequences. Jaishankar's eyes remain steady. Power without principle is noise, he replies. The word noise echoes. In control rooms. In living rooms. In government halls. A woman watching from a diner grips her mug too hard. Coffee spills onto the counter. No one notices. The broadcast continues. Time stretches. Every second pulls tight. Jaishankar pauses, just long enough for discomfort to bloom. He leans closer to the microphone. The hum grows louder. The lights feel harsher. He begins to explain what happens when nations confuse dominance with respect, and the sentence hangs in the air as his next words form, and the entire room waits for the sound that is about to fall. The silence presses against every wall. Jaishankar's breath is slow, controlled, deliberate. His eyes scan the studio. He senses the tension like static on skin. When nations confuse dominance with respect, he says, they forget how fragile power truly is. A faint buzz crawls through the speakers. Someone in the audience shifts uncomfortably. The chair legs scrape the floor. Piers' jaw tightens again. His eyebrows lift but his mouth stays closed. Jaishankar continues. He speaks of history, of empires that believed themselves eternal. Dust now covers their names. The lights reflect off the glass table. They shimmer like thin ice. A producer whispers urgently behind the cameras. No one listens. The moment has escaped control. Jaishankar's voice grows firmer. India has learned from being pressured, he says. From being lectured. From being underestimated. Each sentence sharpens the air. The audience feels smaller. The room feels heavier. On a massive screen backstage, global news channels switch to the same feed. Breaking banners flash red. Faces of analysts freeze in disbelief. In Washington, aides stop typing. In New York, a newsroom falls quiet. In London, a commentator removes his glasses slowly. Trump steps closer to the screen. The glow reflects in his eyes. His fingers curl into a fist. The words strike him personally now. Jaishankar shifts slightly in his chair. The microphone captures the soft movement of fabric. He leans forward again. His tone lowers. Almost intimate. Almost dangerous. Friendship without equality is just obedience, he says. A gasp escapes from the audience. Someone covers their mouth. Piers finally speaks. His voice cracks at the edges. Are you saying America is wrong? Jaishankar does not answer immediately. He looks directly into the main camera. Into millions of watching eyes. Right and wrong are not owned, he replies. They are earned. The studio feels cold now. Despite the heat of the lights. Despite the packed bodies. A bead of sweat runs down a camera operator's neck. No one moves to wipe it away. Jaishankar continues speaking. His words describe a world shifting. Slowly. Relentlessly. A world where voices once ignored now speak clearly. Where silence is no longer fear. Where alignment is chosen, not forced. Outside, thunder rolls faintly. The sound seeps into the broadcast. The timing feels unnatural. Almost scripted. Piers glances at the clock. The segment is running long. He does not interrupt. He cannot. Jaishankar pauses again. Longer this time. The pause stretches nerves thin. He draws one breath. Then another. He begins to describe what happens when pressure fails and respect is denied and nations decide to stand alone, and the air seems to vibrate as his next statement forms, and every listener senses that whatever comes next will leave no room for comfort and no easy way back. The vibration in the air grows stronger. Jaishankar's eyes remain steady. Unblinking. When pressure fails and respect is denied, he says, nations rediscover their spine. A sharp sound escapes the speakers. Feedback. Brief. Unsettling. He speaks of choices made in isolation. Of roads taken without permission. Of costs accepted without complaint. The studio feels smaller with every word. The walls absorb the tension. The floor seems to hum beneath shoes. Piers shifts again. His notes lie forgotten. Ink smears under his palm. Jaishankar's voice carries weight now. Not loud. Not aggressive. Certain. He describes a world that no longer waits for approval. A world that remembers old wounds. Colonial scars. Broken promises. Unequal tables. Each phrase lands carefully. Precisely. A woman in the audience presses her hands together. Her knuckles turn white. A man exhales sharply through his nose. The sound feels too loud. Behind the cameras, a junior producer stares at the monitors. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears. This was not in the briefing. This was not expected. Jaishankar tilts his head slightly. His expression softens. Only for a moment. Then it hardens again. Respect, he says, is not granted by volume or threat. It is granted by restraint. By memory. By resolve. The word resolve hangs heavily. In the studio. In offices across continents. In rooms where decisions shape lives. Trump shifts his weight. The carpet beneath his feet feels rough. The screen light flickers across his face. He feels the words press against years of speeches. Against instincts. Against belief. He mutters something under his breath. No one answers. Back in the studio, Piers' breath sounds uneven. He attempts a smile. It does not reach his eyes. He asks about alliances again. About unity. Jaishankar nods slowly. Unity built on fear collapses, he replies. Unity built on respect endures. A low murmur ripples through the room. Someone shakes their head in disbelief. Another nods silently. The cameras glide closer. Every pause feels intentional. Every breath measured. Jaishankar continues. He speaks of multipolar futures, of voices rising from places long ignored, of balance returning like gravity. The lights flicker briefly. A collective gasp follows. Then stability returns. But the feeling does not. Piers glances toward the control room. A hand signal tells him to continue. His throat tightens. He asks what America should learn. The question feels fragile. Jaishankar looks at him, then at the camera, then slightly upward, as if weighing history itself. Learning begins, he says, when listening replaces lecturing. The audience goes completely still. No coughs, no movement. Even the hum seems to fade. A distant siren wails outside. The sound slips through the walls. It feels symbolic, unavoidable. Jaishankar leans back slightly. His hands rest calmly. He appears finished. Then he adds one more thought. Soft, almost gentle. The most dangerous illusion, he says, is believing shock will silence truth. A chill runs through the room. Piers' lips part. No words come. Across screens worldwide, viewers lean closer. Breaths are held. Jaishankar's gaze remains fixed forward as he begins to explain what happens after shock fades and clarity remains and power is forced to confront its reflection, and the studio waits knowing the next words will reshape the meaning of this moment and everything that follows. The reflection he speaks of feels heavy. Jaishankar's voice stays calm. After shock fades, clarity remains, he says. Clarity is uncomfortable. It strips away illusions. It exposes habits mistaken for values. The audience feels the weight of that idea. A man in the second row rubs his temples. The air smells sharper now, almost electric. Jaishankar describes power staring at itself, seeing not strength, but dependency, not leadership, but expectation. A camera lens adjusts focus. The soft mechanical sound cuts through silence. Piers swallows. His tie feels tighter. He asks whether this risks isolation. His voice carries caution, almost fear. Jaishankar answers slowly. Isolation chosen is different from isolation imposed. The words sink deep. A woman watching at home leans forward on her couch. Her heart beats faster. She does not blink. Jaishankar speaks of dignity, of nations refusing to trade self-respect for comfort, of standing still while pressure circles like wind. The studio lights flicker again. Brief. Enough to raise eyebrows. Enough to deepen unease. In the control room, hands hover over switches. No one dares cut away. The moment feels larger than broadcast. Jaishankar's tone grows quieter. That makes it more dangerous. History remembers those who spoke softly while shifting the ground, he says. The phrase echoes. Shifting the ground. Piers glances down. His notes no longer matter. The script has vanished. Trump steps back from the screen. The room feels smaller around him. He exhales slowly. The confidence he knows so well does not arrive. Instead, there is calculation. Back in the studio, a low creak sounds as someone adjusts posture. It feels intrusive. Jaishankar continues. He describes a future forming without permission. Trade routes changing. Voices aligning quietly. Decisions made in rooms far from traditional power. The audience senses momentum, like a train already moving. Too heavy to stop. Piers asks one final question. His voice barely hides tension. Is this a warning? Jaishankar meets his gaze. A warning implies threat, he says. This is reality. The word reality lands hard. Several people inhale sharply. A woman presses her lips together. No one challenges him. Jaishankar explains that reality does not shout. It arrives. It settles. It reshapes. The lights feel harsher again. Heat presses against skin. The microphones capture every breath. He speaks of respect earned over decades. lost in moments, regained through patience, through firmness, through refusal to bend when bending costs identity. The studio feels suspended, like time has slowed. Jaishankar pauses only long enough to breathe. Then he continues. He describes what happens when nations stop reacting and start choosing. Markets respond. Alliances adapt. Narratives collapse. The audience senses a shift. Not dramatic. Inevitable. Piers' hands rest flat on the desk. He does not interrupt. He cannot. Jaishankar's voice remains steady as he begins to describe the quiet consequences that follow bold clarity, and how discomfort turns into recalibration, and how those who laughed first often listen last, and the room leans forward knowing the next words will deepen the unease already settling into history. The unease thickens. Jaishankar speaks of quiet consequences. They do not announce themselves. They arrive gently, like fog before dawn. Discomfort turns into recalibration, he says. Institutions adjust their language. Headlines soften. Assumptions retreat. Those who laughed first begin to listen last. The audience shifts again. Seats creak in unison. A cough rises and dies quickly. The control room watches in silence. No one blinks. Jaishankar describes meetings held behind closed doors. Voices lowered. Strategies rewritten. Maps studied with new caution. The studio clock ticks loudly now. Each second sounds deliberate. Piers rubs his thumb against the desk edge. The texture grounds him. Barely. Jaishankar continues. He speaks of respect changing tone. From command to conversation. From demand to dialogue. From pressure to patience. The word patience hangs heavily. It carries years within it. Across oceans, diplomats pause mid-sentence. Emails remain unsent. Phones vibrate unanswered. Trump sits down slowly. The chair absorbs his weight. The screen continues to glow. The words continue to land. Jaishankar's eyes narrow slightly. Not in anger. In focus. He speaks of moments when silence becomes louder than outrage. When restraint unsettles those expecting reaction. When calm feels like defiance. A woman in the audience exhales shakily. Her shoulders drop. She realizes she has been holding her breath. The lights hum again. Steady. Relentless. Jaishankar explains that power often mistakes noise for influence. But influence moves quietly. It moves through trust. Through consistency. Through memory. The room feels warmer now. Or perhaps heavier. Piers attempts another question. His voice trails off halfway. Jaishankar lifts a hand gently. Not to interrupt. To continue. He describes how nations remember who stood firm when it mattered. Who spoke plainly when others danced around truth. Who accepted short-term discomfort for long-term dignity. The audience absorbs every word. Some nod. Some stare. Some frown deeply. No one dismisses him. The cameras zoom closer again. Every line on Jaishankar's face becomes a landscape. Calm. Unmoved. Deliberate. He speaks of recalibration spreading quietly. Trade agreements reconsidered. Energy routes reassessed. Votes shifting in rooms without windows. The world adjusting its balance inch by inch. Piers' forehead glistens under the lights. He wipes it quickly. The gesture feels exposed. Jaishankar's voice softens once more. Softness sharpens the impact. He says discomfort is often the first sign of growth. That shock fades. But memory stays. And memory reshapes behavior. The audience feels the truth of it. In their chests. In their silence. Outside the studio, rain begins to fall. The sound taps lightly against glass. Inside, no one notices. Jaishankar continues to speak about what follows recalibration, and how nations quietly reposition themselves, and how old certainties lose their grip, and how the most profound changes happen without applause, and the room remains frozen knowing the moment is still unfolding and far from complete. The moment continues to stretch. Jaishankar speaks of repositioning without drama, without banners, without declarations. He describes nations adjusting their stance like chess pieces moved at night. Quietly. Precisely. irreversibly. The rain outside grows heavier. It drums against the glass. A steady rhythm. Almost calming. Inside, tension refuses to ease. Jaishankar explains how old certainties lose their grip. How familiar phrases stop working. How threats lose their echo. The audience senses something slipping away. Something long assumed permanent. Piers sits very still. His hands no longer move. His eyes remain fixed. The control room clock blinks red. The broadcast is far past schedule. No one signals to stop. Jaishankar continues. He speaks of applause as distraction, of noise as camouflage, of real change occurring when cameras turn away. The studio lights feel dimmer. Or perhaps everyone has adjusted to their glare. A man in the back row leans forward. His elbows press into his knees. He feels history passing close. Close enough to touch. Jaishankar's tone grows reflective. Almost solemn. He speaks of responsibility that comes with voice. Of choosing words that endure beyond outrage. Beyond headlines. Beyond one evening. The word endure settles deep. Trump watches without blinking. The room around him feels distant. Muted. The message reaches places he did not expect. He shifts again. The chair creaks softly. Jaishankar now speaks of respect returning slowly. Not as praise. As acknowledgement. As recalculated behavior. As changed posture across tables. The audience senses the shift. It is subtle, but unmistakable. Piers inhales deeply. The air fills his lungs. Heavy. He considers interrupting. He does not. Jaishankar explains that the strongest statements rarely sound aggressive. They sound inevitable. They sound final without being loud. The rain intensifies. Water streams down the windows. Lines blur the city lights outside. Inside, clarity sharpens. Jaishankar speaks of patience again. This time with emphasis. Patience outlasting pressure. Patience exhausting provocation. Patience revealing who truly controls the tempo. The audience shifts. Some faces show admiration. Some show discomfort. Some show recognition. The cameras capture every reaction. Nothing escapes. Piers finally finds his voice. He begins a sentence. Stops. Swallows. Then listens instead. Jaishankar continues uninterrupted. He describes a future already forming beneath old narratives. New partnerships growing quietly. New confidence spreading steadily. The world reordering without asking permission. The studio feels like the center of something larger now. A point of convergence. Not control. Consequence. Jaishankar's gaze remains steady as he speaks of the cost of ignoring reality and how denial delays adaptation and how those who cling longest often fall hardest, and the rain continues to fall and the lights continue to hum and the silence continues to deepen as the words keep moving forward, carrying the moment with them without slowing down. The rain begins to soften. Each drop grows lighter. Jaishankar finishes his thought with care. Denial delays adaptation, he says. Adaptation defines survival. The studio exhales as one. Not relief. Recognition. Piers nods slowly. His voice returns, quieter. Thank you, he says. The words sound different now. Earned. The cameras pull back. The lights dim slightly. The hum fades into background noise. Audience members sit still. No applause follows. None is needed. Across oceans, screens go dark. Rooms fall silent. Notes are reread. Assumptions reconsidered. Trump turns away from the television. The reflection lingers longer than the image. In the studio, Jaishankar rises. His chair slides back softly. He offers a brief nod. Contained. Complete. Outside, the rain stops. The city breathes again. The moment passes into memory. Quietly. Firmly. Leaving behind a truth that does not echo loudly but settles deeply and remains long after the lights have gone out. What happens when one calm voice makes an entire studio fall silent and leaves America stunned, Piers Morgan speechless, and even Donald Trump visibly shaken? In this video, You will witness the exact moment India Foreign Minister S Jaishankar delivers a statement so sharp, so composed, and so unexpected that global power dynamics seem to shift in real time. No shouting. No aggression. Just words that cut deep, creating discomfort, shock, and a silence louder than outrage. As the tension builds second by second, the reactions reveal more than the statement itself, and by the end, you will realize why this single moment is being called a turning point that the world was not ready for.